Good morning, everyone. I'm Nick Slavic. I'm the proprietor of the Nick Slavic Painting and Restoration Company here in Minnesota. I've been a craftsman for over 20 years now, and I'm going to use that 20 years of experience to answer all your painting questions, painting and otherwise. You can send in your questions before this feed, during the feed certainly, and then during the week after, and I'll collect those up and I'll answer those for you today. Today I am live from a job site of mine. We just started yesterday. We had a few hours left in the day, so we came here, did a little bit of prep. This is, the typical home in my area, 5 to 8 years old, James Hardi siding. It still has the original paint on it, completely sun-blasted and faded from the elements here. We will be doing a simple repaint. The homeowners wanted me to recreate the original colors, do it in a similar format, maybe tweak a little bits of trim here and there to make it look better. There's some wood shakes on this house, which they wanted restored back to that nice cedar look. They had turned gray from 8 years out in the Minnesota elements here. As you can see, pretty typical sort of newer construction home here. There's a piece of tin missing from a recent storm up there. That's where you can see the bare boards. But the biggest problem with the Hardi siding, the James Hardi siding up here, is that it's not really a problem with the James Hardi siding. It's a problem with the original paint. When I dig through the basements of these newer houses, a lot of times I'll find the original cans that the people used. It's a very low-grade sort of builder's paint, which you can't really hold against them because the standard for new construction, at least in my neck of the woods, is a very low-grade sort of buildery, flat, not a lot of resin in it. The other problem is that I found when I open these cans up, the paint is very watery. Even when I mix it up again to try to recreate the original color, and as you look at the rest of the house, a lot of overspray marks, you can see where they taped and things like that. So the only thing I can surmise is that, when this was originally painted, which is par for the course up here, somebody got a low-grade paint, they watered it down greatly, and they sprayed one coat on. And that's sort of the perfect recipe for fading. When you water down paint, it makes it go through the sprayers a lot easier, makes it go a little farther, makes it dry a little quicker, but it also dilutes the resin that protects the colorants and the tint in the paint. So what you see then is the south side and the west side horribly sun-blasted and faded, and in a second here I'll walk you over and show you how far it's went. So on this house there was no original paint. I had nothing to go off of, so I had to recreate the colors based on a truck full of Fandex here, and I got it pretty close. I tweaked it just a tiny bit, just trying to assume what the original intent of the homeowners was with the color. So I'll take a walk over here and I'll kind of show you what I did here. These are the color samples I did for the homeowner. You can see a little bit on the trim and a little bit on the siding. The siding is very, very dramatic. It doesn't even look like the same color, but the portion on the left here is completely sun-blasted. This is my new color, and then you can see on the trim it approximated pretty closely. And that color didn't fade too much, only because it's a lighter color, but this green color just got completely sun-blasted. And believe it or not, that was the original color on the house, or as close to it as I could assume there. So I'll show you another part on the house that was completely protected from the sun and the elements. Here's a nice little northwest corner here. You can see I did my same sample down here. That's the same paint on the same house, and you can see how much that faded on the front. So typically how I fix this is, first of all, you have to figure out if the house is now chalky. When the sun breaks down, the UV breaks down those colorant molecules. A lot of the times, whatever resin is left there will get chalky. So you have to figure out if you need to wash the house. If no chalk comes off the house and it's basically just cosmetic, you can go ahead and do a adhesion test over that. So just like we talked about last week or the week before, there's a scratch test, and then there's the hash mark test where you score the paint with a razor blade and you apply masking tape over it and see if anything comes off. Otherwise, you basically apply some top coat and just go with your fingernail to scratch test and see if anything will come off. Typically, when I get a house like this, it's not that much extra to add an additive called emulsibond. Emulsibond helps paint bond to chalky or dusty or poorly prepped surfaces. If there's any question, it's sort of cheap insurance to just go buy a couple gallons of emulsibond. It gives you the list to the ingredient measurement, so you can mix it up with the top coat. You apply it to the house only on the first coat. You don't want to put it on the second coat. It makes a poor top coat. But it helps adhere if there's any question in that. So on this house, Paint was in good shape. We washed a few areas that were a little chalky. There is, out in the rural part of the country here, everybody's on well water, and the well water is full of iron, which is a orangish, reddish stain. And when people have sprinkler systems out here and spray up against the house, you can see the clear arcs of orangish tint on the house. And that's another thing that you sort of need to consider. Just see if that leaves any residual iron staining, anything that'll come off. If it just stained the house, like sometimes powdery mildew will do that too. There'll be this black little areas under the eaves. Something will come off, but it usually ends up staining the paint, especially the cheap sort of builder's paint. So if nothing comes off on your finger, you're good to go. But again, always do an adhesion test on that to make sure it's good. In order to prevent this fading from happening in the future, I mean, obviously you use the top of the line paint. A little trick that I've devised over the years is, you know, instead of using flat exterior paint, which a lot of houses do up here, it hides a lot of flaws. I move up to the low luster in the Benjamin Moore Ora is my particular outside paint here. And then, yeah, like I said, emulsibond on the first coat, you remove the emulsibond, don't add it on the second coat. And I believe that the low luster paint, the resin in it, the stuff that gives it a little shine, actually locks in those color molecules a little better. And over the years, I've seen a little bit longer life in the low luster. And, you know, especially with these Hardi board houses too, sometimes that little bit extra shine, that low satiny sheen, sometimes it looks pretty cool too. So basically that's sort of the, you know, what we're up to here, what we're up to today, and we'll be finishing this house probably in the next day or two of working days here. So this last week in particular, I've got 2 questions on painting laminate countertops, and they've occurred probably once a week for the last month preceding that. So it's a very interesting application, and these products have just started popping up in big box stores and hardware stores probably in the last year or two here. I will be referring to the Rust-Oleum offering only because that's a worldwide, nationwide product. Everybody can see it. There's going to be other products that you're going to find that are similar to this, give you the same idea, but may vary by the you know, ingredients, by the process a little bit. But basically the idea behind these things is you have a blasted, used up laminate countertop, or you don't like the color of it. What are you going to do to it? You can either replace it with laminate, you can replace it with solid surface, you can replace it with granite, and we all know that stone and solid stone is a very, very pricey alternative. So there's got to be something in between there, and this product tries to fill that gap. Now, I'm going to walk you through the general idea of it, the process of it. You can kind of make your mind up at the end, but I will offer you a sort of alternative to this if you would too. So, and again, I got my technical data sheet magically. So, oh, real quick, Tyler, are you going to spray the house? I don't spray any houses. Everything is by brush. So I'll keep going with this here. My technical data sheet, imagine that. I found a technical data sheet. I've read through it. I've took a look at some of the before and afters on this product, and my experience with some of the components here, I'll kind of walk you through as well. So basically, these kits come in 2 sizes, a small kit and a big kit. One will do 30 square feet, one will do 50 square feet, and that equates to about, the small kit will do about 12 linear feet of countertop. The big kit will do about 20 linear feet of countertop in the average size house. Now, here's the deal. The small kit is $240. The large kit is $488, and this is from a large box store, so I assume the pricing is fairly even over the market. So when we do this, keep in mind that we go from $240 for a small kitchen and $488 for a larger kitchen. The kit comes with things that you need. It does not come with everything you need. There are 14 items you may or may not have to go buy to supplement or to even do this project. The basic process is you clean off your countertops, you degloss them with a liquid deglosser in preparation for the base coat to bite. The base coat, you apply the base coat, and this is obviously after things have been prepped, tape off, you know, whatever else you need to do to clean up the area, get it ready for paint. You apply your base coat and you have 20 minutes to apply the chips, and you apply the chips as heavy as possible so that there's excess on top, and the purpose of that is to fill every little gap, so then, you know, when you take them off, it's all done there. So you let that dry overnight. You know, I think they say a minimum 8 to 12 hours, something like that. I would probably give it at least that, depending on the humidity there. And then you sand everything off, sand it nice and smooth, so only little bits of the chips will be all over, and that will pseudo simulate that granite texture like that. Now, you apply, it says to only apply one top coat. I'm always leery of the one coat stuff because nobody can do a perfect job in one coat. You know, in this product, it's a very thick two-part silicone epoxy, so it probably goes on a little bit thicker, but you got to be good with it. You know, I don't know how well a second application or touch-up will do with this stuff, and if it will bond to each other. So you lay on the top coat once you've sanded and vacuumed off and cleaned off all the extra chips. Now, the most important thing is no moving air, no dust, no pets, no use for 12 hours. So that's going to be a long time in a kitchen. You know, to sort of have that dust free. They even recommended no air movement in the house too. Now, after that 12 hours, it should be dry to the touch, but then they say wait 7 days. So, you know, in the process of doing this, you could be out of a kitchen for, you know, somewhere between, you know, 7 and 8 days, give or take. So, the things that included in the kit will basically do the minimum, the things specific to this. On the technical data sheet right here, they have 14 things that you might need to buy to supplement this kit. Now, some of these things, you know, like a vacuum cleaner, we probably have, but you know, if you have a middle to large size kitchen, you're going to spend $488 for the large kit of this stuff. You're going to have to supplement with a good amount of this stuff. So you could be looking at, you know, $600 on the low end, and you still have to do it. And just because these are granite looking kits, don't assume that it will either look like granite or it will perform like granite, because you have to take the 30,000 feet view of this project. You have a laminate countertop, which is a very, very hard surface, as we all know. You have paint, and even though it is a two-part silicone epoxy, which is a very, very tough product, that is still the weak link. If you have a knife, if you have a pan, if you have even a piece of wood, you have the hard object coming in contact with a soft layer coming in, you know, that's sitting on top of another super hard layer. The paint will always be the weakest link in that process. So even if you do a perfect job, even if you're careful with it, if you at all distress that top and let water underneath, to me, in products similar to this and painting process similar to this, that's probably the death knell of this product. If you can keep it waterproof, if you can keep it perfectly intact, I believe this will probably last, assuming that you got a good bond. I believe that as soon as you get a pinhole, as soon as you get a scratch in there and water gets underneath, you'll probably see large-scale delamination. So, you know, you have to do the work. It's a very touchy process. If you've never painted before, it's some very, very unique processes you have to do. You may have to go get a bunch of stuff, and then this process could take over a week to do. Now, here's an alternative. From the same place that you would go buy this kit of stuff to do, I've done this for my shop, and I've done this for other clients too, and suggested this, where let's say it's Lowe's, Home Depot. In the back of that, over by the countertops, they have 10-foot pre-made laminate countertops in probably 4 to 6 colors already, and they're going to be very similar to the offerings here. You can see in the small kit, you only have 2 color offerings in this. In the large kit, you only have 4 options, and I assume it's going to be a black, a tan, a gray, and a something else. So in the back of these home stores, for $138, you can get a 10-foot straight pre-made laminate countertop. That's with the backsplash, that's you know, the flat countertop part, and a nice rolled edge in front. And I've even used these in my shop. Instead of coming up with my own you know, countertops and bench tops and things like that, I'll just go get some of these $138 pre-made things, cut them to what you need. If you're ripping out your old countertop, you're going to have that as a template for your sink cutouts and your water sprayers and things like that. I think that's a pretty good alternative. If it's $600 to paint it and you're not sure it's going to last, and you're still going to get, say it's granite looking, but really it looks like a laminate countertop. You know, we all know that. For $138 and a little more of your labor, you could probably replace your countertop or have somebody do it too. And it's probably going to be in service quicker than 7 or 8 days. So my 2 cents on that. I'll scroll through some of your questions here real quick. Oh, something I should bring up too is that, you know, in at least my world, brushing, rolling versus spraying, some combination of the both, sort of a heated topic. Don't think that just because somebody brushes the house that they're going to go much slower. This is a really good size house We have about a third of the house done already, and we've only been painting less than 2 hours this morning here. So it goes very quickly if you have all the ladders set up, if you have, you know, all your drop clouds ready, and you got a really skilled crew. One thing, a great tip for the homeowner is that, again, my favorite, the technical data sheets. If you read the technical data sheets for all these exterior paints, they tell you what kind of brush to use, what kind of roller to use, and what kind of sprayer to use. But there's a caveat in there. If you spray these coatings, they recommend, not recommend, most of them say you must back brush or back roll. Now, when I ask my Benjamin Moore rep, my Sherwin-Williams rep, and any other guy who calls on, you know, hundreds of painters at a time, I always query them and say, you know, out of all the guys who paint exterior houses as a professional, number one, how many do it by brush completely? And number two, who does it, who sprays and then back brushes and back rolls when they do that? And they come back saying, you know, there's probably out of, you know, 200 to 300 painters that they call upon as paint reps, there's probably only 10 to 15 guys who paint everything they do all by hand like I do. And a lot of those guys are going to be handymen and teachers and things like that just have smaller crews and do smaller projects. I prefer to do the large scale projects even by brush too. And then when I ask them, out of those sprayers then, you know, we're dealing with probably out of 300 painters, you may be dealing with, you know, 270, 280 guys who spray houses, which is the norm in my industry. They laugh when I ask them how many back brush and back rolls. So all you painters that are watching, I know there's a bunch of us good guys, and we're a self-selecting group. If you're watching this, you're probably one of us, one of the good guys who follows the technical data sheets and the recommendations. But there are the large majority of guys out there who simply just spray the house and leave it be. As a homeowner, if you were to a good signifier of who is a good contractor, if you don't know any contractors, I mean, obviously go for recommendations, but if you don't know any contractors, call your local paint store and ask them who pays their bill on time and who is good to work with. And honestly, they're only going to give you maybe 3 or 4 names of guys like that, guys who will actually return your call. When you get those guys to your house for your estimates, a very simple question is, do you use the highest end paint? And if you do spray it, do you back brush or back roll? And they're going to be taken by surprise because most homeowners don't know to ask that. But it is in the technical data sheet. If you pull up the technical data sheet for Sherwin-Williams Duration or Benjamin Moore Aura, any other exterior house paint like that, it's going to say back brush and back roll. So that's a good way to sort of suss out all the good contractors from the bad. So I'll take one little scroll here, see if there's any other questions. Daryl, little gray in my beard. Yeah, there's a little gray there, and it's strategically backlit by the morning hazy sun here too. So yeah, no, thank you. And Dave, brush and roller or just brush? It's all by brush. Here, let me show you the crew sneaking up on me here. We usually work in teams like this on a smaller project, but yeah, this is basically what we do. Everybody grabs a nice stiff brush and a bucket, and we just go to town. So it goes pretty quickly. So okay, well, I appreciate you guys all watching here. I have a podcast out with Tom Reber, Strongpreneur Nation. If you look on iTunes for Strongpreneur Nation or Tom Reber, you'll find a podcast where I talk about the business of painting, some of my leadership philosophies, things like that. Let's see, Jerry Rabushka from the Paint Dealer recently talked to me, collected up a bunch of information and some pictures, and there will probably be something coming out in the Paint Dealer shortly. And the Venerable Chris Shank and I just talked a few days ago for a podcast for the PDCA that may or may not be coming out today or somewhere in the near future here. I think Chris must be in there somewhere, so maybe you can clarify when that's coming out. But I had an awesome conversation with him, and we sort of we talk a lot about, again, the philosophy of what we do and how to separate ourselves, and again, it's after the New Orleans PDCA convention this last year, the expo. it really sort of shocked me into thinking about my business and what I do, only because it seemed like what I was doing was quite a bit different than most of the other companies. So it's been a very introspective bunch of months since the PDCA Expo, and it's really made me sort of tune up a lot of parts of my business, and you know, kind of it's been interesting. So I appreciate you guys all watching this. Share it if you would, and send me any of your questions at all. There's nothing I can't answer as a 20-year professional in the painting industry. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next week.